No maid lasted with the millionaire's little daughter until a new maid did the impossible. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. The marble halls of the Hale mansion echoed with a child's scream. A porcelain vase shattered somewhere down the corridor. Another maid had quit again. For 3 months straight, no one had lasted longer than a week caring for Mr. Hale's daughter. Some left in tears, others left in silence, all muttering the same thing. That child isn't normal. Upstairs, behind a locked bedroom door, little Lily Hale sat cross-legged on the floor, her small hands clenching a torn teddy bear. "I told you, Mr. Fluffy," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They always leave." Downstairs, a new applicant stood in the grand foyer, twisting her hands nervously. Her name was Ella, 26, with tired eyes that had seen too much loss for her age. She'd been a nurse once, until life fell apart. Now, she needed this job no matter who the employer was. She didn't know the man watching her from the top of the stairs was Ethan Hale, a billionaire tech founder whose face had once been on magazine covers, but whose heart had frozen the day his wife died. He studied Ella quietly, noting the modest clothes, the calloused hands, the way she stood as if expecting to be turned away. "You understand the position?" he asked, his voice low, precise. "Full-time, live-in, my daughter, can be difficult." Ella met his gaze. "I understand," she said softly. "I won't run." Ethan's jaw tightened, skeptical. Everyone said that at first. But something in her tone, steady, calm, almost tender, made him pause. The head housekeeper led Ella through the marble corridor, the air heavy with silence and old grief. Family portraits lined the walls, each showing the same smiling woman with kind eyes, Ethan's late wife, Claire. Ella stopped for a second, studying the photo of Claire holding a laughing little girl in her arms. That same girl now hid behind a bedroom door upstairs. "She doesn't talk much," the housekeeper murmured, lowering her voice. "She hasn't since the accident." Ella nodded, her chest tightening. She had seen this before, the kind of silence that comes from losing too much, too soon. The kind that medicine can't fix. When she reached the door, she didn't knock immediately. Instead, she knelt, set a small cookie on the floor, and spoke gently through the wood. "Hi, Lily. My name's Ella. I heard you like chocolate chips." No answer, only the faint rustle of movement inside. "That's okay," she added quietly. "You don't have to open the door. I'll just leave this here. I'll be around if you need me." Then she stood and walked away. For the first time in months, the sound of tiny footsteps followed the silence. Upstairs, Lily peeked through the crack in the door. A cookie waited for her on the rug. Downstairs, Ethan watched the security monitor, surprise flickering across his face as the little girl slowly reached out and took the cookie. He didn't know it yet, but that was the first moment his home began to breathe again. The first sign that the impossible might just happen. The next morning, the mansion felt different. Sunlight spilled through the tall windows for the first time in weeks, touching the dust that had gathered on the piano keys. Ella woke early, tying her hair into a low bun and buttoning her plain gray uniform. The silence of the house was thick, almost sacred. She moved through the halls quietly, her shoes barely making a sound against the marble. In the kitchen, she found the cook shaking her head. "You will not last long, dear," the woman said, pouring coffee into a mug. "None of them do." Ella smiled faintly. "Maybe she just needs someone to stay." The cook sighed. "It is not the child, it is the father. Mr. Hale keeps the world out, including her." Ella carried a breakfast tray upstairs. She paused before Lily's door again. "Good morning, Lily," she said softly. "I made pancakes. They are shaped like hearts. Would you like to try one?" No response. Ella waited, then slowly slid the tray onto the floor and walked away. 10 minutes later, when she came back to collect it, one pancake was gone. A small victory, but enough to make her smile. Later that afternoon, she found the courage to open the playroom. It looked frozen in time. Dolls still sat at a tea table, a half-finished puzzle gathered dust by the window, and a single painting hung crooked on the wall, a watercolor of a family of 3, smiling beneath a summer sky. Ella touched the edge of the frame gently. "You miss her, do not you?" she whispered, even though no one was there to answer. Behind her, a soft sniffle. She turned. Lily stood by the door in her pajamas, the teddy bear pressed tight to her chest. Her hair was tangled, her eyes red, but she did not run this time. "Hi," Ella said quietly. "Would you like to finish this puzzle with me?" Lily hesitated, her small fingers tightening around the bear. Then she nodded once, almost invisible, and walked closer. They sat on the floor, fitting pieces together in silence. After a few minutes, Lily spoke, her voice small as a whisper. "Are you going to leave too?" Ella froze, then shook her head. "No, sweetheart. I will stay as long as you want me to." Lily looked at her for a long moment, searching her face for lies. Then she picked up a puzzle piece and placed it into Ella's palm. "This one is hard," she said. Ella smiled. "We will figure it out together." Downstairs, Ethan watched from the hallway. He had meant to check on them briefly, to make sure the new maid had not upset his daughter, but the sight before him stopped him cold. Lily was smiling. Not much, but enough. It was the first time since Claire's accident. Something shifted in his chest, something he thought he had buried forever. That evening, Ella found a small note slipped under her door. "Thank you, Lily." The handwriting was wobbly, a child's uncertain scrawl, but to Ella it felt like a treasure. She pressed it to her heart, whispering, "You are welcome, little one." From his office, Ethan stared at the same note through the security feed. For the first time in years, he closed his laptop early and walked upstairs. He stopped at Lily's door, listening to the quiet hum of Ella's voice, reading a bedtime story. "Once upon a time," Ella said, "there was a little girl who thought she was all alone. But one day, someone new came, and she realized the world had not given up on her yet." Ethan turned away, the lump in his throat too heavy to swallow. For the first time, he wondered if the new maid was not here just to take care of Lily, but to save them both. Days began to find a rhythm inside the Hale mansion. The sound of footsteps that once echoed through empty halls was now softened by laughter, faint but real. Every morning, Ella prepared breakfast with Lily, letting her stir the batter, spill the flour, and giggle at the mess. The child's joy was hesitant at first, like a bird learning to fly again, but it grew each day. Ethan noticed the changes, even if he tried not to. He would pass by the kitchen and pause at the doorway, watching his daughter balance on a stool, her tiny hand wrapped around a wooden spoon while Ella stood beside her, patient and smiling. He never stepped inside, but for the first time in years, he lingered. That evening, during dinner, Lily whispered, "Daddy, Ella says pancakes taste better if you flip them with your heart." Ethan blinked, caught off guard by the sentence, by the fact that his daughter was talking to him at all. "She said that, did she?" he murmured, hiding a small smile behind his glass of water. Later that night, he found himself standing outside the staff quarters, hesitating before knocking. "Come in," Ella's voice called. She looked surprised to see him, but stood up politely. Ethan cleared his throat. "I wanted to thank you," he said stiffly. "Lily seems better." "She is healing," Ella replied softly. "Children can do that if someone stays long enough to show them they are safe." Ethan nodded, his jaw tightening. "I hired you to take care of her, not to analyze me." "I am not," she said calmly. "But sometimes children reflect what adults feel. She misses her mother, and maybe she misses her father too." Ethan's gaze hardened, but there was no anger, only weariness. "Good night, Ella," he said, and left before she could reply. That night, Ella sat by her small window, looking out over the dark garden. She could sense the weight he carried, grief so heavy it had built walls around his heart. She wondered if those walls could ever come down. The next morning, heavy rain fell over the estate. Thunder rolled across the sky, and Lily's room glowed pale under the gray light. "I do not like thunder," she whispered, crawling into Ella's arms. "It is too loud." Ella stroked her hair gently. "It is just the clouds talking to each other," she said. "They are not angry, just noisy." Lily giggled softly. "You always have an answer for everything." That is my job, Ella smiled, to make sure you are not scared of the noise. But downstairs, another kind of storm brewed. Ethan's assistant had arrived, bringing a stack of contracts. The board wants you in Chicago by next week, he said. It is the biggest deal of the year. Ethan barely listened, his eyes drifting to the security monitor, showing the nursery feed. Lily sat in Ella's lap, tracing her tiny fingers along the maid's wrist as they whispered to each other. Something about the scene made his chest tighten. That night, after Lily fell asleep, Ethan found Ella in the kitchen cleaning up spilled cocoa. "You should not let her get used to you," he said quietly. "She has lost enough." Ella looked up, meeting his eyes steadily. "Then do not make me leave," she said simply. The air between them felt fragile, charged with unspoken things. For a moment, Ethan looked like he might argue, but instead he turned and walked out, his voice rough. "Good night, Ella." She watched him go, then whispered to herself, "Good night, Mr. Hale." Upstairs, Lily stirred in her sleep, clutching her teddy bear tighter. The storm outside raged on, but for the first time, the little girl did not wake up crying. Somewhere deep inside the mansion, 3 lonely hearts were beginning to find the same rhythm. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, the Hale mansion began to feel alive again. Music returned in the form of Lily's laughter echoing down the halls, soft piano notes floating from the living room, where Ella encouraged her to press the keys. The girl's fingers were clumsy, but her smile was bright. "See, you are learning," Ella said warmly. "It does not have to be perfect, just honest." Ethan often watched from the doorway, silent. He could not remember the last time he had heard the sound of joy in his house. It stirred something he could not name, something both painful and beautiful. One afternoon, Ella found him in his study, surrounded by papers and screens. "You work too much," she said gently. "You should take a walk outside. It is sunny." Ethan looked up, amused. "I do not think my schedule allows for sunshine." "Then make it," she replied. "Your daughter misses you." He froze at the word daughter, the one that still cut like glass. He had never been good at showing affection, not even before the accident. "She has you," he said finally. "She needs you," Ella countered softly. "She needs her father." The silence that followed was heavy, the kind that makes both hearts ache. That evening, Lily tugged at Ethan's sleeve during dinner. "Daddy, we are going to the garden tomorrow. Will you come?" He hesitated, then glanced at Ella, who gave him a small, hopeful nod. "All right," he said quietly. The next day, they walked through the garden together. The air smelled of roses, and the world felt softer. Lily skipped between them, humming a song Ella had taught her. When she tripped over a root, Ethan rushed forward, his instinct overriding everything else. He knelt, brushing dirt from her knees. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice breaking. Lily shook her head, giggling. "I am okay, Daddy." And then without warning she wrapped her arms around his neck. For a second he froze, then slowly he held her back. Ella watched from a few steps away, her chest tightening at the sight. It was the first time father and daughter had truly touched since the accident. That night, Ethan stood by Lily's bed, watching her sleep. He turned when he heard Ella's voice behind him. "She sleeps peacefully now," she said softly. "You gave her that." "No," he whispered. "You did." For a long moment, they simply stood there, the quiet between them filled with gratitude and grief. Later, as Ella prepared to leave the room, he said her name for the first time without formality. "Ella," he began, his voice low. "How do you do it? How do you stay kind after everything?" She hesitated. "Because someone once stayed for me when I thought no one would," she said. "Kindness is the only thing that saved me." He looked at her, something vulnerable flickering in his eyes. "Claire used to say that too," he murmured. She believed kindness could heal anything. Ella smiled faintly. Then she was right. When she left, Ethan lingered in the hallway, staring at the closed door. For the first time, he felt the ice inside him begin to melt. The next morning, he joined them for breakfast without being asked. Lily beamed, chattering about pancakes and stories. Ella caught his eye across the table and smiled. In that small, ordinary moment, Ethan realized how extraordinary it felt just to be present. The world outside could wait. Inside these walls, something fragile was growing hope. Summer arrived with golden light spilling across the Hale estate, turning every morning into a small miracle. Lily's laughter filled the halls like music, and Ethan found himself drawn into a routine that once felt impossible. Breakfast together, walks in the garden, piano lessons where his daughter proudly played off-key. Life was no longer quiet in the hollow way it used to be. And at the center of it all was Ella. She never tried to replace what had been lost. She simply showed them how to live again. One afternoon, Ethan found her kneeling in the garden, tending to a patch of wildflowers that had grown near the fence. "Those are weeds," he said, half smiling. Ella glanced up, wiping her hands on her apron. "Maybe. But sometimes weeds just need someone to see them as flowers." Her words lingered longer than she realized. That night, while reviewing company reports in his office, Ethan caught himself staring at the photo of his late wife on the bookshelf. "You would have liked her," he whispered. The following week, the foundation Claire once started for orphan children was hosting a charity gala, the first since her passing. Ethan had avoided it for years, unable to face the memories, but this time, Lily begged him to go. "Please, Daddy. Miss Ella says it is good to remember people we love." He hesitated, then nodded. "All right, we will go." On the night of the gala, Ella helped Lily into a soft blue dress and tied a ribbon in her hair. When Ethan appeared at the doorway in his suit, for a moment he forgot how to breathe. Lily ran to him, squealing, "You look like a prince, Daddy." Ella smiled softly from behind. "She is not wrong," she teased. For a second, he almost said what flashed through his mind, but he caught himself. "You both look lovely," he said instead. At the event, whispers followed them. Guests smiled politely, pretending not to notice that this was the first time Ethan Hale had shown up with his daughter and with a maid by his side. But Ella moved through the crowd with quiet grace, helping Lily adjust her dress, comforting the child when the flashes of cameras grew too bright. When it came time for Ethan's speech, he froze behind the podium. The faces in front of him blurred, the memories pressing too hard against his chest. From the corner of his eye, he saw Lily holding Ella's hand. That small, grounding image gave him strength. "For a long time," he began slowly, "I thought grief was something to be locked away. But I have learned that healing does not mean forgetting. It means finding the courage to love again." The room fell silent. When he stepped down, Lily ran into his arms. "Mommy would be proud," she whispered. His eyes burned as he hugged her tighter. Later, when the crowd thinned, Ethan found Ella on the balcony overlooking the city lights. "You were right," he said quietly, "about kindness." She turned to him, the soft wind brushing her hair. "You found it on your own," she replied. "I just reminded you it was still there." He hesitated, his next words uncertain. "You have done more for this family than I can ever repay." "Then do not repay me," she said. "Just keep choosing her, every day." Ethan looked at her for a long moment, realizing he wanted to keep choosing both of them. But before he could speak, Lily's voice called from inside. "Daddy, Miss Ella, come dance with me." And in that instant, under the golden lights of the gala, the three of them stepped onto the floor, one broken family, learning how to be whole again. The night of the gala became a turning point, not just for Ethan but for everyone who had been holding their breath inside that mansion. The next morning, the world seemed brighter. Lily hummed as she brushed her teeth, and even the housekeeper caught herself smiling at the sound. For Ethan, the change was subtle but constant. He began taking breakfast with them every day, reading Lily bedtime stories at night, and walking with Ella through the gardens when the air was cool. But with every passing day, he also realized something deeper he had started, depending on Ella's presence more than he intended. One afternoon, he found her in the library organizing books that had gathered dust for years. "You do not have to do that," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "I like order," she answered, smiling. "Books are like people. They fall apart when you stop caring for them." He chuckled softly, stepping closer. "You talk about everything as if it feels." She looked at him. "Maybe it does. Everything that has been touched by love holds something alive." Their eyes met, and for a brief second, the air between them changed. But before either could speak, Lily burst into the room with her sketchbook. "Look, Daddy, Miss Ella and me in the garden." Ethan took the drawing, smiling at the crude shapes and stick figures. "You are quite the artist," he said. "It is for Mommy," Lily added, her tone innocent. "Miss Ella says love never goes away, it just changes where it lives." Ethan's throat tightened. He looked at Ella, his voice softer now. That sounds like something Claire would have said. Later that night, after Lily was asleep, a storm rolled in, the kind that rattled windows and made the lights flicker. Ella was checking the rooms when she heard a sharp sound from upstairs. She rushed into Lily's room to find the girl shaking in bed, clutching her teddy bear. "It is all right, sweetie," Ella whispered, sitting beside her. "It is just thunder." "I dreamed Mommy left again," Lily cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. "And then you were gone too." Ella held her close. "I am not going anywhere," she said softly. "I promise." Ethan appeared in the doorway, his shirt damp from the rain. He froze when he saw the two of them. Ella looked up at him, her voice steady. "She needs you." He moved closer, sitting on the other side of the bed, his large hand resting over Lily's tiny one. "I am here, baby," he said quietly. "Daddy is right here." Lily's breathing slowed, her eyes closing as she drifted back to sleep between them. When the room finally fell silent, Ethan looked at Ella across the pillow. "You stayed," he said, "even when it was hard." "That is what love does," she replied. "It stays." He wanted to say more, but the words caught in his throat. When Ella stood to leave, he caught her wrist gently. "Ella," he said, his voice breaking, "if you ever think you are just the help here, you are wrong. You are more than that." She looked at him, emotion flickering in her eyes, but before she could answer, lightning flashed outside, illuminating the room for a split second. "Good night, Mr. Hale," she whispered, pulling away gently. When she was gone, Ethan sat beside his sleeping daughter, realizing that somewhere along the way, he had stopped seeing Ella as an employee and started seeing her as the reason his home finally felt like home again. The morning after the storm, the air smelled of rain and renewal, but inside the Hale mansion, something quiet had changed. Ethan was distant again, caught between emotion and restraint, while Ella went about her duties with the same calm grace, pretending not to notice the glances he tried to hide. Days passed, each one heavier than the last. Lily sensed it too. "Daddy," she asked one evening as they painted together, "why do you look sad again?" Ethan smiled faintly. "I am not sad, sweetheart, just thinking." "Miss Ella says thinking too much makes your heart tired," Lily said with a giggle. He laughed softly despite himself. "She says many things that make sense." But as night fell, he found himself in his office, staring at the fireplace. There was something he needed to face. His assistant had been reminding him for weeks about a potential relocation to expand the company overseas. It would mean leaving everything behind for at least a year. Once, that decision would have been simple. Now it felt impossible. He was still deep in thought when Ella entered quietly, holding a cup of tea. "You forgot dinner," she said. "Lily was asking for you." Ethan looked up, tired. "I am sorry. I have been distracted." She set the cup down gently. "You do not have to apologize for being human." He met her eyes, the flicker of the fire reflecting between them. "You make that sound so easy." "It is not," she said softly, "but it is worth trying." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then he asked, "Ella, what did you do before this?" "Before us?" She hesitated. "I was a nurse, pediatrics. I loved it." "What happened?" he asked. Her expression dimmed. "A little girl came in after an accident. I did everything right, but she did not make it. After that, I could not step into a hospital again." Ethan's heart ached. "I am sorry." "So was I," she whispered. "That is why I came here, to learn how to help again." There was silence, only the faint crackle of the fire. Then Ethan said quietly, "You have done more than help. You have saved us." Ella's eyes glistened. "Do not say things you do not mean." "I mean every word," he said, his voice trembling. "Before you, this house was just walls. Now it feels alive." For a moment, the distance between them disappeared. Then Lily's laughter echoed faintly down the hall, and they both stepped back, reality settling between them like a wall. Later that night, as Ella tucked Lily into bed, the little girl asked, "Do you like my daddy?" Ella froze. "He is a good man," she said carefully. "But do you love him?" Lily pressed. Ella brushed her hair gently. "Love is complicated, sweet girl." "He loves you," Lily whispered sleepily. "He smiles more when you are around." Ella's heart twisted. She watched the child drift into dreams, unaware that truth often came easiest from innocent lips. The next morning, Ethan received a call that made his chest tighten. The board had approved the expansion. They expected him in London within a month. As he ended the call, his gaze drifted toward the garden where Ella and Lily were laughing under the sunlight. He realized he was standing on the edge of something fragile: family, love, and the risk of losing both. That evening, when he joined them for dinner, Ella noticed the distant look in his eyes. "Something happened," she said quietly. He nodded. "The company needs me abroad." Her hand froze midair. "And Lily? She will come with me," he said, but his voice wavered. "And me?" she asked, trying to sound calm. The silence stretched, sharp as glass. "You know I cannot ask you to come," he said finally. "You do not have to ask," she whispered. "But you should decide what you truly want before you lose it." She stood, leaving him alone with the sound of rain beginning again outside, as if the storm had never really ended. The following days moved like slow rain, dripping from the edges of the roof. The mansion, once full of laughter, seemed to hold its breath again. Ethan buried himself in work, telling himself that the move to London was for Lily's future, for stability, for everything he had spent years building. But deep down, he knew it was also because he was afraid to stay, afraid of what staying meant. Ella continued her routines quietly, caring for Lily with the same warmth, though her smiles no longer reached her eyes. She avoided long conversations, spoke to Ethan only when necessary, and every night when she tucked Lily in, she felt the child's arms wrapped tighter around her, as if trying to hold the family together by sheer will. "Miss Ella, are you going to leave too?" Lily whispered one night. Ella's heart clenched. "Do you want me to?" "No," Lily murmured. "You make Daddy happy." Ella brushed a strand of hair from her face and whispered, "Then I will stay a little longer." But in her heart, she knew she could not stay forever if Ethan refused to fight for what they had become. A week before the planned departure, the staff began packing boxes. Lily's drawings were taken down from the walls, her toys stacked neatly in bins. The sound of change filled the house, tape ripping, footsteps echoing, doors closing. That evening, Ethan came home later than usual, his tie loosened, exhaustion etched across his face. Ella was in the foyer, sorting through Lily's belongings. He stopped, watching her for a long time before saying quietly, "You do not have to do this." "Someone has to," she replied without looking up. "She will want her favorite things close by." "You could come with us," he said suddenly. The words surprised even him. Ella froze. "You said it was impossible." "I was wrong," he admitted. "Maybe I just did not want to admit I am scared." She turned toward him, her eyes soft but guarded. "Scared of what?" "Of needing someone again," he said. "Of losing them." For a moment, neither moved. Then Lily's laughter carried faintly from upstairs, a reminder of what truly mattered. "Ethan," Ella said quietly, "love is not about avoiding pain. It is about choosing what is worth the risk." He looked at her, realizing she was right. But before he could respond, his phone buzzed. A reminder flashed across the screen. "Flight itinerary, confirmed." He hesitated, then silenced it. "Stay," he said, his voice almost breaking. "Please." Ella's eyes glistened. "You have to mean that, not because you are afraid to lose me, but because you want to build something real." "I do," he whispered. "I just do not know how." "Start by not running," she said. Before he could answer, Lily ran down the stairs, holding a drawing in her hands. "Look!" she beamed. "It is us in London." Ethan knelt beside her. The picture showed 3 figures: Daddy, Lily, and Miss Ella, all holding hands under a bright Sunday. "See?" Lily said proudly. "We can all go." Ethan felt his throat tighten. "Maybe we can," he said softly. That night, after Lily fell asleep, Ella stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to see Ethan, his face illuminated by the soft glow of the lamp. "I do not want to lose what we have built," he said. "Then do not," she whispered. He reached into his pocket and handed her something, a folded note written in Lily's handwriting. It read, "Family means we stay." Ella looked up, tears welling in her eyes. "She wrote that after the gala," he said. I think she has known longer than we have." For the first time, Ethan stepped closer and took Ella's hand. "If you are willing," he said, "I want to make this our home, not just mine." Ella nodded slowly, emotion flooding her voice. "Then let us stay." And for the first time, staying did not feel like surrender, it felt like a choice. Spring came quietly to the Hale estate, painting the gardens in soft green and gold. The move to London never happened. Instead, Ethan turned the company's overseas plan into a new branch, led remotely, a choice that shocked his board but freed his heart. The mansion no longer echoed with emptiness. It rang with laughter, music, and the sound of a child's joy. Every morning, Lily ran through the halls with her sketchbook, calling for her father and Miss Ella. Every evening, they sat together in the garden, as the sun dipped behind the trees. The world outside kept spinning, but inside those gates, time slowed to something tender and real. One afternoon, Lily burst into Ethan's office, her hair a messy halo of curls. "Daddy, come quick!" she cried. Miss Ella made a surprise. Ethan followed her to the backyard, where Ella had set up an art show of Lily's drawings, each one framed, each one telling their story. The last drawing was different. It showed the three of them under a rainbow, the words scrawled at the bottom, "Home." Ethan's chest tightened. "She said she wanted to make a museum of happy things," Ella explained, smiling shyly. "She thought we needed more of them." "She was right," he said softly. Later that evening, when Lily had gone to bed, Ethan found Ella in the garden again, lighting small lanterns that floated on the pond's surface. The reflection of the lights shimmered like stars. "She told me once," Ella said quietly, "that she dreamed her mommy lived in the stars. So tonight, we are sending some light back to her." Ethan stood beside her, his hands in his pockets. "Claire would have liked you," he said after a moment. "She always believed love shows up when you least expect it." Ella smiled. "Then maybe it just took a while to find its way back here." There was a pause, long and gentle. The night air smelled of lilacs, and the world seemed to hold still. Ethan turned to her, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Ella, I have spent years building things that do not matter half as much as this, what you have given us, what you have given me. You stayed when you could have walked away. You brought my daughter back to life, and you reminded me how to feel again. I cannot imagine this house, this life, without you." She looked at him, her heart trembling. "Ethan, what are you saying?" He smiled faintly, stepping closer. "I am saying I do not want you to be just part of this family by name. I want you to be it." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a simple gold ring, elegant and unpretentious, just like her. "Ella," he said softly, "will you marry me?" Tears welled in her eyes as she covered her mouth with trembling hands. "Yes," she whispered, her voice breaking. 1,000 times yes. When they embraced, it was not the kind of love that burned bright and loud. It was quiet, steady, the kind that heals. From the balcony above, Lily watched with a sleepy smile and whispered to her teddy bear, "I told you they would stay." Weeks later, the wedding was held in the garden beneath the same oak tree where Lily first learned to laugh again. It was small and simple, filled with flowers, music, and joy. As the sun set, Lily ran up to them, holding the same teddy bear from that first day. "We should take a family picture," she said proudly. Ethan lifted her into his arms as Ella leaned close, her hand resting over his heart. The photographer counted down 3, 2, 1, and for the first time, the Hale family smiled as one. The picture would hang forever in the hallway, beside a small sign that read, "Sometimes, love does not arrive to rescue you. It arrives to stay." Oh, experience one of the most heartwarming millionaire stories ever told, where love, loss, and healing intertwine inside a mansion that once echoed with silence. This emotional journey follows a lonely father, his spirited daughter, and the maid whose kindness rebuilds their broken world. Through laughter, storms, and second chances, this cinematic tale reminds viewers that true wealth lies in love and family, not fortune, perfect for fans who crave emotional millionaire stories that celebrate compassion and redemption. Each moment unfolds with sincerity and tenderness, proving that kindness can heal even the coldest heart. Discover how this family found their way back to hope in a world defined by class, grace, and human connection. Among all millionaire stories, this one shines for its honesty, reminding us that staying, not status, defines love. If you believe in transformation through empathy, this is the kind of millionaire stories you will never forget.